Okay, well, it's also a day when we will talk much about this man right here. Many refer to Dick Cheney as one of the most powerful vice presidents in American history. And this morning, his family announced that he has passed away at the age of 84 from complications with pneumonia and heart and vascular disease. Political consultant Tom Serafin is joining me now as we look at Dick Cheney's decades in politics marked by a mountain of highs and lows. And we also got to talk about his lasting legacy. Thanks so much for taking time.
Yeah, good to be here.
I remember, Tom, covering Vice President Dick Cheney as a young reporter in Central Texas, going over to Crawford during the Bush years. And I distinctly recall that moment, especially the first time, of seeing Dick Cheney enter a room and thinking to myself, this man is connected to so much history, so many monumental decisions connected to his name. What are maybe a few well-known and maybe even one or two lesser-known markers of his time climbing the political ladder?
Well, he started with Jerry Ford, who was the result of Richard Nixon stepping down. He worked in that administration. So in many ways, you watch his career, it's much like he was involved in what the Republicans now call the deep state, which is their own deep state. I mean, he worked for Herbert Walker Bush when he was at the CIA. When he became president, President Bush put him in charge of the Desert Storm War, did a very good job there. Ironically, when his son, 43, George Bush, the governor of Texas, decides to run for president, he selects Dick Cheney for his vice president after putting Dick Cheney in charge of looking for a vice president. He put a 50-page questionnaire together, sent it out to everyone, and then at the end of the day, he told the president, I'm the guy, so I should be the vice president. And George Bush picked him. He went on to run the Iraq War. And he was the hardliner in the Republican Party. And as tough as George Bush, the president, was, Dick Cheney was tougher, very conservative, very tough. And one of those pieces that you asked me about, enhanced interrogations, which was something that he pushed a lot for in the Defense Department when he was vice president. And that was really torture at the time. That, fortunately has never gone anywhere the way it was in that particular administration. So he was the most powerful, probably next to a gentleman most of us don't know, John Calhoun, as the president. He was always thinking himself as a co-president. And in his memoir, which is an interesting story, he talks about 9/11, when 9/11 is going on and these planes are in the air, and we don't know who's in the plane and who isn't. Are there more terrorists? He asked everybody to leave the Oval Office, and he says, Dick Cheney, he said, Dick, what should I do? Should I put the order out to shoot the planes that are still in the air, even though they may have passengers? And he said, yes, sir, you have to do that. Fortunately, it was never done.
You mentioned the aspect of the deep state, and that really leads in to my second question for you, because obviously in recent years, his name has been more so tied to this shift in the Republican Party under President Trump, his daughter, of course, being on the January 6th committee. Do you think that his passing will bring about more of that conversation about where the Republican Party has gone and where it continues to go now that he is gone?
Yeah, the good question. The irony of all ironies is that he did not endorse Donald Trump. He went in the other direction. He hated Donald Trump. And as his daughter, the Congresswoman, Liz Cheney, never got along. She was on the impeachment committee. She was also on the January 6th committee. She was the go-to Republican for the Democrats, along with Kinzinger, to put on that particular committee to make it appear bipartisan. So there's been a rift there for a very long time. I don't know if that's going to do any more as we go forward. I think that he's kind of run his turf there on that particular one. Liz Cheney is certainly still out there. If the Democrats take control again, she may be reappointed to some position. But the Dick Cheney and the Cheney family, right now are probably dealing with their dad's loss and dealing with a huge part of the history. 50 years, 40, 50 years where he's been a key player, and his Cheney stamp on the Defense Department, on the wars in the Middle East, on how he built the military-industrial complex, and his toughness with dealing with his congressional colleagues, is never gonna wane. When he was very young, he was a lineman, and he was a hard-drinking guy, and he straightened himself out. and he became a good hunter. And in fact, he lived in Texas for a while, although he was a congressman from Wyoming. And when the president selected him, he had to leave Texas, move back to Wyoming, because you can't have a president and a vice president from the same state.
So much. We could talk about him for the rest of, we will be talking about him for the rest of the day, but with you, our time here is limited. So thank you so much for joining me for a few moments to just talk about, you know, where things stand, 5 presidents that he is all connected to, and where we go from here. Thank you so much, Tom Seraphin.
And it's 2 big, huge wars that, you know, when you look back in history, could be questionable wars. So God bless everybody at Fox 32. Nice to see everybody.
Good to see you again as well.